Are you thinking of playing your wildcard in Game Week 9? I've got a draft for you. Starting off then with the goalkeepers and defence, I've built this team in a tool called DraftHound. You can find them in a link in the description below and sign up yourself. I've gone for Turner in goal. You probably guess who the other goalkeeper is, but we'll get to him at the end. He's got Luton as his fixture in Game Week 9. I think you've got a reasonable chance of a clean sheet. Gone up to 4.1 million now, but I still think, regardless, he's one of the cheapest starting goalkeepers in the Premier League. And with Luton as his fixture, I think it makes sense to go with him. Trippier, Udogie and Cash in defence. Trippier is just Mr. Consistent in terms of points. I think he's well and truly worth the price that he's in FPL at the moment. Same with Udogie, really. Tottenham looking really good, both going forward and keeping a fair amount of clean sheets and quite low on the expected goals conceded as well. Udogie v Porro's quite a close one. Don't really think there's too much in it. Both of them have a couple of assists this season so far. Gone for Udogie just because he's a bit cheaper, basically. Matty Cash is the top Premier League defender for expected goal involvement so far this season. Totally makes sense to go for him, in my opinion. Even though he's 5 million now, obviously Villa have got fantastic fixtures, the goal threat he has, and of course the chance that Villa have to keep clean sheets in these great upcoming fixtures. I think he's a shoo-in. On to the midfield, and I think there's a couple of ways you could play it, right? You could downgrade Trippier, go for someone like Dan Burn, a couple million cheaper, and upgrade Diaby to Saka. I've gone for the Trippier Diaby double up. I think it's going to outscore Burn and Saka. I think Diaby looks absolutely fantastic going forward. Really, really dangerous. And obviously with the fixture quality that Villa have, I think it's worth going for him. Anthony Gordon, he seems to have nailed his place on the left wing for Newcastle. He'll come back from his suspension in Game Week 9. Obviously got his 5th yellow of the season in Game Week 7, so missed Game Week 8. Newcastle got some really decent fixtures going forward. He looks really good as a player. And I think Eddie Howe really likes him for the energy that he provides on the left wing. And of course, the competition that he's mainly got for that spot is Harvey Barnes, who's currently injured. Jared Bowen, I really like Jared Bowen. He's a 90-minute man, guaranteed to play pretty much every game for West Ham. And you look at those upcoming fixtures for them, I think they look really good. And he's got a chance of scoring in either of those fixtures. Aston Villa, Everton, Brentford. Neither of these teams have looked absolutely amazing defensively. So yeah, definitely see some goals there. Gone for Salah. Don't really need to explain why. He's probably the best midfielder in the league at the moment, certainly in FPL in terms of points he is, and those expected points coming up. Everton, Forest and Luton as the upcoming fixtures, just absolutely fantastic. I think week on week pretty much he is a captaincy alternative. You can probably guess that Haaland's in this team, right? He's a captaincy alternative to Erling Haaland, and I think potentially when he plays Forest and Luton, you could well hedge against Erling Haaland with him. You'll notice there's no Heung-min Son in this team. I've instead opted for James Maddison. I just don't think you need Son. If you're not going to captain him, I think really the captains are between Salah and Haaland for me. So I've gone cheaper. I've gone for Maddison. Mr. Consistent for Tottenham so far this season. And I'd actually suggest he's probably more involved in the game than Heung-min Son is, particularly when Richarlison's playing centre forward and Son's on the left. He doesn't really seem to get amongst the goals and assists too much, but Maddison's got that number 10 position locked down. Every time Spurs score, he's pretty much involved. Up front then, it's not really a surprise. We've got Haaland and Ollie Watkins. I think Haaland's probably the best captain for Game Week 9. Brighton have not kept a clean sheet so far this season. I think it makes sense to captain Haaland for that one. Watkins gone up to 8.1 million. I still think he's that kind of talisman for Aston Villa. Even though he's not even on the penalties anymore, I still think he's a really good option. Leading the game at the moment in terms of total points. He's probably the best player in the game for the upcoming game weeks as well. And just to finish things off, a quick look at the bench really. Obviously I've gone for Areola in the Turner Areola standard double up. Gahey, Kabore and Archer. Those three on the bench basically, they just start every game, so it's worth going for them. Crystal Palace have looked really good defensively, and I think with the fact that both Elise and Eze are injured, they're only going to have to turn things up defensively. Ultimately, over the next couple of weeks when they've got Newcastle and Tottenham, I don't think you're going to need to rely on Gahey. And then, of course, he plays Burnley, where you might want to play him instead of Udogie, who's got Chelsea, for example. I would say there's a couple of ways that you could change this team in different ways you could go about it. I've tried to build it in a way that pretty much everyone should be able to afford it. I'm building this in the terms of viewing my team in terms of the value that I might have accumulated in some of these players. So I think Bowen is slightly more expensive. Same with Areola. And to be honest, I imagine most people will have a healthy amount of budget to be able to afford a team like this. I've I've already mentioned a couple of ways you might be able to save a bit of cash. So at the moment, you could go Trippier to Burn and Diaby to Saka. That might make the team even more affordable for you. And yeah, a couple of other moves you could obviously drop Gahey for someone cheaper as well. Maybe Areola could go down to the Brentford keeper, who's currently starting at 3.9 million as well. So yeah, a few ways you can play it, but ultimately, I think this is probably the best wildcard draft you can go with. I just thought while editing the video, I'd throw in a view of the alternative draft as well. So this one should be affordable, I think, for pretty much any player in FPL. If you take all the players at their face value as they are at the moment, if you don't own any of them already and have taken or not their full price rises or drops, you should be able to afford this team. It doesn't have Trippier in it. It doesn't have Diaby in it, but it's got Dan Burn, who I think, he won't match Trippier's points, don't get me wrong, but he'll obviously get points for clean sheets and looks to be a bit more of a goal threat this season. And then you get Bukayo Saka, who I think is probably Arsenal's best midfielder. He might not have taken them all so far this season, but he is the designated Arsenal penalty taker. I'd say he's their talisman. Arteta's been playing him so much, you know, he's guaranteed to start in my opinion. Arteta's been playing him so much that, you know, he's been injured basically. Chelsea and Sheffield United is the next couple of fixtures. I think Chelsea might be a cagey game, but I mean, he could score against anyone, Saka. And then Sheffield United in game week 10. Fantastic fixture. I don't think there's much better you can ask for. So yeah, if you wanted a little bit of an alternative, perhaps can't quite afford the team I've just showed you, I think this is the one to go for. Alright, and that's the end of the video. Personally, I think if you're asking me, I wouldn't wildcard in game week 9 if I've still got the chip in hand. I think game week 10 is the time to do it. There's a nice fixture swing where Arsenal's fixtures pick back up to become a bit nicer, like for Saka, etc., become really nice options. So if you can, I think it's worth holding out for another game week just to keep those assets you've currently got. Play your wildcard in game week 10. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments what you think of my drafts. I mean, ultimately, FPL is all about different opinions. So if your opinion is different to mine, you think I should select other players, then let me know in the comments. And please subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just here. I'll have plenty more content coming out before the Game Week 9 deadline, so subscribe to see all that. I'll catch you in the next video.